George Orwell, born Eric Arthur Blair in 1903, was a British writer whose experiences with war, poverty, and authoritarian regimes shaped his worldview and writing. Published in 1949, 1984, is Orwell's stark warning about the dangers of totalitarianism, offering a chilling vision of a future where individuality is obliterated by state control. Set in Airstrip 1, formerly Britain and now a province of the superstate Oceania, the novel depicts a society ruled by the omnipresent Big Brother and an all-powerful party. In this dystopia, life is dominated by relentless surveillance, propaganda, and the manipulation of truth. The party's slogans, "War is peace," "Freedom is slavery," "Ignorance is strength," encapsulate the distorted reality forced upon its citizens. Through mechanisms like the Ministry of Truth, history is rewritten to align with party doctrine, and even thoughts are policed by the thought police. Winston Smith, the protagonist, is a middle-class bureaucrat who begins to question the party's oppressive rule, symbolizing humanity's enduring struggle for freedom and truth. The setting, a decaying, impoverished London, reflects the bleakness of a society divided into the inner party, outer party, and proles, with the majority of people living in ignorance and despair. Orwell's masterful storytelling captures the terrifying potential of unchecked political power, making 1984 a timeless and urgent cautionary tale. Having set the stage for Orwell's dystopian vision, let us now delve into the story of Winston Smith, the man at the heart of 1984. Winston Smith is a frail and contemplative 39-year-old who works as a minor official in the Ministry of Truth. His job is both monotonous and morally troubling, rewriting historical records to fit the party's ever-changing narrative. The party's control over truth is absolute. Events that do not serve their agenda are erased, and falsehoods are inserted to craft a flawless image of Big Brother's infallibility. Winston performs these tasks dutifully, but harbors a growing unease about the world he inhabits. Life for Winston is a grim routine, marked by constant supervision and enforced conformity. He lives alone in a dilapidated apartment within the Victory Mansions, a misleading name for a decrepit housing block. From the moment he steps inside, he is under the unrelenting gaze of a telescreen, a device that not only broadcasts party propaganda, but also monitors every movement and sound in his home. In this society, privacy is a forgotten concept. Even the slightest flicker of facial expression, a frown, a smirk, a raised eyebrow, can be construed as thought crime, an unspoken dissent punishable by severe consequences. The party's dominance permeates every aspect of life, encapsulated in its three slogans: "War is peace," "Freedom is slavery," "Ignorance is strength." These paradoxical statements epitomize the concept of doublethink, the ability to accept contradictory ideas simultaneously. Citizens are conditioned to believe whatever the party declares, no matter how illogical. The party's control extends beyond the physical, reaching into the minds of its subjects to eradicate even the possibility of unorthodox thoughts. Despite the oppressive environment, Winston begins to nurture small but significant acts of rebellion. One evening, in a rare moment of solitude, he retrieves a battered blank notebook from a corner shop in the Prole district. Such an item is practically forbidden. Writing one's private thoughts is a crime punishable by death. He sits down in an alcove of his apartment where the telescreen's view is partially obscured, and trembling with fear and exhilaration, writes the words, "Down with Big Brother." The act feels both cathartic and dangerous. He knows the consequences if discovered, but the need to assert his individuality overwhelms his fear. Winston's diary becomes a silent protest against the party's suffocating tyranny. It is a space where he can express his doubts, frustrations, and fleeting hopes for a better future. Though small and seemingly insignificant, this defiant act marks the beginning of his journey to reclaim his humanity in a world determined to suppress it. The daily life of Oceania's citizens is a study in oppression and deprivation. The streets are lined with crumbling infrastructure, the air filled with the acrid smell of decay. Food rations are scarce and unpalatable, consisting of synthetic substances like Victory Gin and Victory cigarettes, which barely mask the harsh realities of life under the party's rule. Each day begins and ends with party slogans blaring from the telescreens, reinforcing loyalty and suppressing individual thought. At the Ministry of Truth, where Winston works, reality itself is continuously reshaped. The ministry is a sprawling structure, both imposing and oppressive, a physical manifestation of the party's unyielding grip on truth. Winston's role involves editing past records to align with the party's current narrative. If the party decrees that Oceania has always been at war with Eastasia, Winston and his colleagues ensure that all historical evidence supports this claim. Through meticulous alterations, inconvenient truths are erased, and fabricated events are inserted, creating a reality where the party is infallible. This relentless rewriting of history is made possible by the concept of doublethink, which requires individuals to accept blatant lies as truth while remaining oblivious to the contradictions. Language itself is weaponized through the creation of newspeak, a stripped-down version of English designed to eliminate unorthodox thoughts. Words like freedom and rebellion are systematically removed, leaving citizens with no language to articulate dissent. Without words to express rebellion, the very concept becomes unthinkable. Newspeak embodies the party's ultimate goal, to control not only actions, but also thoughts. Winston's growing disillusionment with the party is accompanied by a deep sense of envy for the proles, the working-class majority who live outside the party's constant surveillance. Though they endure crushing poverty, they retain a semblance of freedom. Unlike party members, the proles are not subjected to telescreen monitoring or rigid ideological conformity. Winston believes that if hope exists, it lies with the proles, whose sheer numbers and untapped potential for rebellion could one day challenge the party's dominance. Despite his outward compliance, Winston's inner turmoil grows. He begins to question the party's absolute authority and dreams of a world where truth and freedom prevail. These fleeting hopes are tempered by the ever-present threat of the thought police, who root out and punish dissent with ruthless efficiency. Every step Winston takes toward rebellion feels both necessary and perilous, a testament to the party's terrifying power to instill both fear and defiance in its subjects. One of the party's most chilling rituals is the daily 2 minutes hate, an orchestrated event designed to channel the citizens' emotions away from the party and toward its chosen enemy, Emmanuel Goldstein. Goldstein, depicted as a former party member turned traitor, is portrayed as the embodiment of all threats to Oceania's stability. His image is broadcast on the telescreen, accompanied by a barrage of accusations and inflammatory rhetoric. During the 2 minutes hate, the room becomes a cacophony of rage and hysteria. Citizens scream, curse, and throw objects at the telescreen as Goldstein's face looms large. His calm, intellectual demeanor, contrasted sharply with the visceral hatred of the crowd, makes him an ideal scapegoat for the party's propaganda machine. The ritual reinforces unity among party members through a shared outlet for their anger, binding them more tightly to Big Brother. It is during one such session that Winston finds his gaze drawn to O'Brien, a member of the inner party. O'Brien is a figure of power and enigma, exuding confidence and intellect. For a fleeting moment, their eyes meet, and Winston is struck by an inexplicable sense of connection. Though he has no concrete evidence, he feels certain that O'Brien harbors unspoken doubts about the party, much like himself. This moment, brief as it is, ignites a fragile spark of hope in Winston's heart. As the session reaches its climax, the crowd erupts into fervent chants of loyalty to Big Brother. The atmosphere shifts from hate to adoration, a jarring yet deliberate transition orchestrated by the party to solidify its control. Winston joins the chant, outwardly mirroring the others, but internally his hatred for the party deepens. The realization that even his fleeting hopes are fraught with danger weighs heavily on him. He understands that rebellion, however small, is perilous in this world of absolute surveillance and control. In the oppressive world of Oceania, where surveillance permeates every corner of existence, Winston's life has thus far been one of quiet rebellion, marked by secret thoughts and suppressed desires. Yet the introduction of Julia, a fellow party member, stirs something deeper within him, a spark of hope, though it is not without confusion and wariness. At first glance, Julia embodies everything that Winston despises about the party. She is young, vibrant, and seemingly eager to serve Big Brother, often seen at rallies, chanting slogans with an intensity that would convince anyone of her unwavering loyalty. To Winston, her enthusiasm is both suspicious and nauseating. How could someone like her, so immersed in the party's propaganda, possibly share his own disdain for the regime? He watches her closely, seeing in her all the traits of a mindless follower, and yet something gnaws at him, a gut feeling that tells him there is more to Julia than meets the eye. Then comes the note. It arrives with the subtlety of a whispered promise, tucked into Winston's hand in a moment of fleeting contact. He opens it hastily, his mind racing with both terror and intrigue, the sharp edges of fear cutting into his thoughts. The simple words are so out of place in a world where even the smallest deviation from the party's prescribed thoughts could mean death. I love you. The declaration is a blow to everything Winston thought he knew about Julia and about his own life. For so long he had carried the weight of resentment, frustration, and secret yearning deep within him, all while maintaining the hollow exterior expected of him as a loyal party member. To hear someone, anyone, voice such an intimate sentiment, a feeling that had been outlawed by the party, leaves him breathless. It is as though the very core of the oppressive world around him has been cracked open, offering a glimpse of something both forbidden and exhilarating. Despite the overwhelming danger that such an act of defiance entails, Winston's response is swift, driven by a longing he cannot suppress. The relationship that begins in secret, a stolen glance here, a hushed conversation there, grows steadily. It is not just a physical union. It is an ideological rebellion. In the heart of Oceania, where human connections are twisted and reduced to mere obedience to the state, Winston and Julia find something that transcends party doctrine, a moment of private joy, of real untamed emotion. They meet in hidden, forbidden spaces, dark alleys, rented rooms where the telescreens cannot see them, places that remain outside the prying eyes of the thought police. Here, the rules of the party are momentarily suspended, and the two can share not only physical intimacy, but also the space to talk, to think, to be themselves without the weight of the party's ever-watchful gaze. In these stolen moments, they are free, not just from the party's restrictions, but from the need to conform to a world that seeks to erase every trace of personal desire, freedom, and love. For Winston, this connection is an unexpected form of liberation. He no longer feels entirely alone in his hatred of Big Brother and his longing for something more. With Julia, the walls of fear that once confined him begin to crumble, though he knows that the price of such rebellion is steep. Even as he allows himself to indulge in the illicit joy of their relationship, he knows that at any moment, the party could uncover their secret and destroy everything. But for now, the world they have built together, however fragile, is enough. The small acts of defiance, the quiet rebellion in their love, are a victory in themselves. In the shadow of Big Brother's oppressive regime, they carve out a space where their hearts are their own. A fleeting, fragile space, but one that, for the first time, fills Winston with a sense of what it means to truly be free. The Golden Country represents a powerful contrast to the bleak world of Oceania, a place where everything is suffused with the party's control, from the air itself to the thoughts of the people. For Winston and Julia, it is more than just a physical location. It is an idea, a vision of freedom that exists beyond the reach of Big Brother. As they escape to this secluded haven, the surrounding landscape of rolling fields and clear, unpolluted streams stands in stark opposition to the gray, sterile existence they endure in the city. Here, the oppressive surveillance systems of the party are absent, and for brief moments they can taste a freedom they thought was lost forever. Winston calls it the Golden Country, and in his mind it becomes a place of hope, a world untouched by the party's corruption, a landscape of possibility. It is in this idyllic setting that they allow themselves to dream, to fantasize about a future that could be, if only the chains of Oceania were broken. They speak of rebellion, though their visions differ somewhat. Julia, pragmatic and grounded in the harsh realities of their world, speaks less of lofty ideals and more of the immediate frustrations of life under the party's rule. Her hatred for the party is born not from a grand vision of freedom, but from the personal indignities it forces upon her, its interference in every intimate aspect of life, from love to leisure to thought. Her anger is rooted in the intimate betrayals of the party's control over the most private parts of their existence. Winston, however, is consumed by a more idealistic vision. He imagines a world where truth and individuality are not just allowed, but celebrated. He believes with a growing fervor that resistance is not only possible, but inevitable. The Golden Country becomes a place for him to reflect on the possibility of revolution, a dream that he has nurtured in secret for so long. To him, these quiet moments in the countryside with Julia symbolize a future where the party no longer controls the truth, where humanity can reclaim its autonomy. Together they share their thoughts, sometimes in whispers, as though speaking too loudly could shatter the fragile vision they've created in their minds. But as the months pass, their secret bond deepens, and their desire for true rebellion becomes more urgent. The tension between their shared dream and the oppressive reality they face builds, and soon they begin to take greater risks in pursuit of their hope. They talk more openly about the possibility of organized resistance, of a movement that could defy the party on a larger scale. It is during this phase of heightened rebellion that O'Brien, the mysterious and influential inner party member, enters their lives. O'Brien's presence is magnetic. He is a man of power and authority, his very demeanor exuding calm and control. To Winston, he represents everything the party is, but there is something about him that also suggests a deeper understanding of the party's flaws. It is this enigmatic air that draws Winston in when O'Brien subtly reaches out to him, inviting him to his luxurious apartment, an opulent space that stands in sharp contrast to the grim surroundings of the outer party's dreary existence. The meeting with O'Brien is a turning point, a moment when the promise of rebellion begins to take on a tangible form. In his apartment, which feels like a sanctuary from the chaos of the world, O'Brien speaks in veiled tones of the Brotherhood, a secret underground movement that opposes the party. He hints at a network of dissidents working covertly to weaken Big Brother's authority. O'Brien, with his calm assurances and the weight of his high position, is the ideal figure to lead Winston and Julia into this hidden rebellion. He speaks of Emmanuel Goldstein, the supposed leader of the Brotherhood, and the works that have been published in secret to expose the party's lies. Winston and Julia, emboldened by their secret bond and the promise of a greater cause, make a solemn pledge to join the Brotherhood. They swear to do whatever it takes, acts of sabotage, spreading disinformation, and even making personal sacrifices for the revolution. The idea of working against the party in such a direct way gives them a sense of purpose that had been lacking until now. The cause feels real, and O'Brien's charismatic presence lends them a sense of solidarity and courage that they hadn't known before. Yet as much as Winston is drawn to O'Brien's magnetic personality, he is also filled with a deep unease. O'Brien's true motives remain a mystery, and while Winston feels a growing loyalty to the cause, he is haunted by the possibility that O'Brien may not be what he seems. O'Brien's smooth, authoritative demeanor suggests a man who is always in control, and Winston cannot shake the feeling that, even within the Brotherhood, there are forces at play that he does not fully understand. There is something chilling about O'Brien's calm, an air of manipulation and secrecy that raises doubts in Winston's mind. Is O'Brien truly a fellow rebel, or is he merely a pawn in a game far larger than Winston can comprehend? As Winston and Julia commit to the Brotherhood, they find themselves on the precipice of something far greater than personal rebellion. They are now part of a larger struggle, one that could bring them into direct conflict with the most powerful forces in Oceania. But the question remains, can they truly trust O'Brien? Or is he yet another instrument of the party, a trap that will bring their dream of rebellion to a crushing end? Winston and Julia's sense of rebellion, so carefully cultivated in their secret meetings and clandestine acts of defiance, is shattered by a moment that comes with brutal inevitability. The thought police, ever watchful and ever present, descend upon them in a moment of quiet, oppressive certainty. The arrest is swift and without warning. They are betrayed, not by some external force, but by the very presence of O'Brien, the man Winston had trusted, the man he had believed to be an ally in the cause of rebellion. It is a cruel twist of fate. O'Brien, the man who had shown Winston the path to the Brotherhood, is revealed to be not a fellow dissident, but a loyal servant of the party. His role from the very beginning was never one of solidarity with Winston and Julia, but one of surveillance and control. The realization comes too late. The trust Winston had placed in him, the belief that O'Brien was part of a larger underground movement, crumbles as he is hauled away by the thought police, his mind racing with the horrifying truth. O'Brien was always part of the system, and Winston and Julia's rebellion had been nothing more than a carefully orchestrated trap. In the sterile, chilling environment of the Ministry of Love, the horrors that await Winston are unfathomable. The Ministry, a misnomer as ironic as it is terrifying, is the heart of the party's control over its people. Here, there is no law, no justice, only the absolute power of the party to shape reality, to reshape minds, to break spirits. It is in this place that Winston will be forced to confront the full, crushing weight of the party's control over him. Winston's time in the Ministry of Love begins with a brutal and impersonal process of interrogation. It is not about justice or fairness. It is about the absolute destruction of resistance. The physical pain and torture he endures in this place are just the beginning. The real terror is psychological, as the party seeks to annihilate his independent thoughts and reshape them into perfect conformity. Room 101, the most feared chamber in the ministry, stands as the ultimate instrument of the party's power, a place where the final fracture of the human spirit is achieved. Winston is subjected to relentless physical and mental torture. His body is broken, but it is his mind that the party seeks to destroy. The use of fear is paramount in this process. For Winston, the manifestation of his deepest fear, his phobia of rats, is used as a tool to break him. The rats, his greatest terror, are brought into his cell, and the threat of them becomes the party's final weapon against him. The terror is unimaginable. He is strapped into a chair, a cage of rats placed before his face, ready to tear at his flesh. The overwhelming fear, the primal instinct to survive, breaks through the last vestiges of Winston's defiance. In this moment of unthinkable fear, Winston's resistance crumbles. The party, through the sheer force of terror, succeeds in reducing him to nothing more than a broken shell, a man whose rebellious thoughts have been eradicated. The rats are not the true torture. They are simply the means by which Winston's mind is reshaped, purged of the last traces of his humanity, his individuality. Winston's transformation is total and terrifying. The process of re-education, under the watchful eye of O'Brien, who now reveals his true nature as a loyal servant of the party, accelerates. O'Brien becomes the architect of Winston's undoing, a cruel and methodical force in the process of shaping Winston's mind into perfect alignment with the party's ideology. The physical torture ceases to be the main focus. It is the mental manipulation, the constant rewriting of reality, that overwhelms Winston's spirit. Every truth he once held, every conviction he once cherished, is twisted and dismantled under the relentless onslaught of the party's power. At the heart of Winston's undoing is the party's unrelenting insistence on control over the truth. O'Brien, as the instrument of the party, forces Winston to confront the question that has haunted him. How many fingers am I holding up? It is not a matter of simple truth. It is a matter of obedience. The party demands that Winston not only accept the truth it provides, but that he genuinely believes it, no matter how absurd. The party controls all reality, and Winston must come to accept that truth is not what it appears to be. It is what the party says it is. The culmination of Winston's torture is his ultimate betrayal of Julia. Under the excruciating pressure of fear and pain, Winston breaks. His love for Julia, which had once been a symbol of rebellion and defiance, becomes nothing more than another casualty of the party's absolute control. In a moment of desperation, Winston, unable to endure the suffering any longer, betrays Julia. The moment is a crushing blow to everything he once believed in. The love he had for her, once a powerful expression of rebellion, is erased, replaced by the cold obedience of a man who has been utterly broken. Finally, Winston reaches the point where he accepts the party's ideology, not as a lie but as the truth. He comes to love Big Brother, the very symbol of the oppressive force that has destroyed his life. The love he once felt for Julia, the hope he once had for rebellion, are gone, replaced by a twisted sense of loyalty to the party. He is no longer an individual with thoughts and desires. He is a cog in the machine, a mind that has been thoroughly remade in the party's image. In this final transformation, Winston ceases to be the man he once was. The man who had rebelled, who had dreamed of a world beyond the party's control, is no more. The party has triumphed, not through force alone, but through the complete and utter destruction of Winston's mind, his spirit, and his soul. He is now a faithful servant of Big Brother, and in this final horrific moment, Winston's rebellion is extinguished forever. 1984 concludes with Winston, once a man of rebellion and hope, now a broken shell of his former self, completely indoctrinated by the party. His mind, body, and spirit have been utterly shattered by torture and manipulation, leaving him as a loyal, unthinking servant of Big Brother. The novel's bleak ending underscores the terrifying power of totalitarian control, how a regime can destroy individuality, erase truth, and crush all forms of resistance. At its core, 1984 explores themes of control, the nature of resistance, and the obliteration of personal autonomy. The party's absolute dominance over thought, reality, and human desire strips away all sense of freedom, illustrating the lengths to which authoritarian systems will go to maintain power. In today's world, the novel remains painfully relevant, serving as a warning against the dangers of unchecked governmental power, surveillance, and the erosion of truth. Its enduring legacy lies in its chilling portrayal of how easily the human spirit can be manipulated and controlled, a cautionary tale about the fragility of freedom and the importance of safeguarding individuality in the face of oppressive systems.